You know, for a guy who says he doesn't like hand tools, I sure have been buying a few of them lately. Let's take a look at these things.
Hashtag not sponsored. I paid my own kangaroo skins to pick these up from the TimberCon sale that was on recently, and I decided to get this set because I do have a project in which these will be very handy. Now the set means there is a flat sole and a round sole. I didn't have any idea what that meant, but fortunately the little card in the lovely box had some instructions which pointed me in the right direction. Basically, the flat one is for convex and flat things, and the round one is for concave things. That's the inside of a circle. We will see that soon. They do come with these very lovely high-density foam inserts, which, if like my mate Phil Shinbine, you're going to put them in a drawer, those things are brilliant. Sign of quality packaging is usually sign of a quality tool. Out of the box, they look beautiful. There is, of course, that wax paper wrapping around them to protect the rusty bits that are covered in fine oil so that they will not become rusty while they are in storage. One point to note, with this one at least, it was a little bit loose, so make sure the pieces are not going to fall out and cut your hand open. Speaking of cutting things open, the cork handles have a little bit of shrink wrap plastic on them, again just to protect them, and look at those. They are beautiful. Whoever in the design department over at TimberCon came up with that little feature should be given a gold star. I love the cork trim on these. All the brass knurled bits are sexy as, and it's got some good weight. So the first thing to do when setting up these things is to take that protective layer of oil off everything. Very few moving parts. They are a fairly simple tool, and so that didn't take very long. Here are the blades. I'm not going to pretend I know what metal it is or how good that metal is supposed to be, but if it's anything like my plain blades that I got from Melbourne Tool Company, it should be pretty good. It is lovely and thick, and I actually did use it straight out of the box on some Australian cedar. Now, that is really softwood, but it did cut. However, let's get these things set up properly and sharpen them. I was a touch worried about this. Sharpening is not my strong suit. Here's a fun little feature. I have no idea why, or even if it's on purpose, but I assume it must be. The blades themselves appear to be magnetic. Maybe that helps them hug the body or something along those lines? Not too sure. But anyway, I prepared my waterstones. That's a 1000 grit Japanese waterstone. Gave it a flatten and then used it to flatten the back of the blade. Now you'll see that I covered that in black Sharpie, and after only a couple of minutes, it was all gone and gone evenly, so the back of those blades, the grinding on them, must have been pretty darn good to begin with. I was super worried though they would not fit in my Veritas Mk2 Honing guide. But when I set them to their correct 25-degree angle, they just, and I mean just, it's been held on by a bee's dick there, fit into the jig, and credit to the jig, even with minimal surface area, it held it super sturdy. So you do have to be very, very cautious, but if you have this same Sharpening Honing guide, you can mount these small blades in there successfully and safely. While the back was very good, the front did have a slight hollow grind on there. You'll see in the middle as I work away on the 1000 grit side that the center and back of the cutting edge was not going down at the same rate as the rest of it. Now, I could have worked much longer and made this perfectly flat, but honestly, I only need the tiniest of micro bevels on the front. Once I was happy with the primary grind at 25, I twisted this little bronze knob on the side of the honing guide, which just puts a micro bevel. No idea what it is. It's tiny, just to give you that super fine cutting edge, and that is the only part of the blade that I polished. Flipping my stone over to the 6000 side, it only took a few minutes to get that tiny little mirror finish right on the edge. For some reason I had trouble extending it to the very corners. I could have gone back and ground a bit more, but for a second time I decided that this is what I am happy with. You're mostly with the spokeshave doing the cutting in the middle of the blade anyway. So with the primary and secondary bevels on, quick jump over to the strop, and we give it the compulsory paper test. Loosely held A4 paper is a good test of a blade, and if you want to really see it go, put some tension on there and straight away she will cut. I am a very crappy sharpener, but even so, these blades and my jig allowed me to get an acceptable result pretty quickly. It took me about 15 minutes maybe to do both blades. Reassembly time. Put it down on your workbench or anything nice and flat. Bevel down, reinsert the blade, and then just lightly tighten things up so it's not moving around on you. I set up my test piece of wood and got an air swing the first time, but this is where we can now twirl those little wheels and set the depth correctly, just coming through, to get myself some beautiful little shavings coming off this piece of pine bed slat. Now obviously you can intentionally skew the blade if I'm sure there's a reason for doing so on a spokeshave. As I said, I have no idea what I'm doing here. But I kept them pretty even and nice and shallow, getting some basically see-through cuts coming off that piece of pine. Just to show you how sharp it was out of the box, here it is before I sharpened it. This is of course the flat sole spokeshave. Being put into use on an actual project, my dice towers, which are taking months and months and months, but that's fine because I'm enjoying it and mostly using hand tools on those. They're only for me. A learning experience, you might call them. To be fair, that cedar was super soft, and my technique is super rubbish, but you can see that even with a few minutes of work, you can actually get rid of quite a lot of material. Now, I hadn't had need to use the round bottom one yet, so I set up a little example. This would really challenge, firstly, the spokeshave and also my sharpening skills, because that is end grain, Queensland maple, Moranti, and after a little bit of practice, I actually was able to get end grain shavings straight off this thing. That is fairly impressive. Not a super hard wood, but still quite impressive. Here's a little example of what would happen if you tried to use the flat sole one. You're just not going to be able to bite in because the blade is always going to be held away from the curved wood. So this is an argument to have the set and get the round bottom one too. And of course we can chamfer all the things, even on the inside of curves now, with that lovely tool. This is just a bit of scrap wood, it's not actually a project, but it allowed at least me to demonstrate how you'd go from an inside to an outside curve with the round bottom and then transitioning over to the flat bottom to finish it off. They work lovely together.
Well, there you go, guys. That is my very first, very amateur look at the new Melbourne Tool Company Spokeshave set. I got both of them. You can buy them individually. They're a little bit cheaper per unit if you get the pair. And, well, if I'm going to get into the hand tooly stuff, I might as well do it properly. Plus, they make a really nice set, and I like things that look pretty hanging on my wall. They look beautiful. They appear to be very well made to my untrained eye. They were quite easy to sharpen. Thank goodness they work on the jig. And they seem to work quite well too for, you know, my hack and slash woodwork joinery anyway. So if, like me, you are a power tool woodworker, but you're interested or hand tool curious, you might say, then they are a fairly cheap addition to the workshop, and one that, like the blurb card says in here, you'll probably start finding excuses to break them out instead of reaching for a power tool. This is James from Fixit Fingers. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you found today's video handy, and come back next week where I think I'll be building a home, matching my hand tool till to go something like that. I'll see you there.